it is going. There's some problem. It's now going. It's now going. Okay. वागर्ताविव सम्पृक्तौ वागर्तप्रतिपत्तये जगतः पितरौ वन्दे पार्वती परमेश्वरौ वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां हरिः ॐ स्वार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीमम्ब दशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वाम् अनुसन्ददामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्स सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरननदी कैवर्तकः केशवः राशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटम् नानाख्याननकेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितं लोके सज्जनषट्पदैरहरः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयात् भारतपङ्कजं कलिमल प्रध्वंसिनः श्रेयसे मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवं यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः। हरिः ओम्। Okay, before we go into the last three shlokas, as just portions, we will quickly see that and then move on. If Manushya Janma is Durlabha, then how and where from the crores of Atmas are suddenly to be seen on the earth? Before 50 years, they were not seen. The population of India, she is right. Population of India has gone orders of magnitude. Now, what happened to Brahmaji? Sending so many Atmas to the earth, especially in India. See, we should understand one thing. What you see today is like seeing the whole earth, which is not even imagine the whole earth is as small as the head of a bell pin. Just imagine, the whole earth is as small as the head of the bell pin. So our vision of these 50 crores, 130 crores are all such a tiny things. These are very temporary events that are happening in these long cycles of this process. As we said, the Sesha Kali is 4,25,000 years. Only 5,195 years have gone. 5,105 years have gone in Kali Yuga. So all these are temporary phenomena. There is a rise. This is very cyclic. The whole thing is cyclic. Maybe after 200 years, I don't know what will happen. We now see all temporary things, although it appears slightly on the higher side, because this whole thing is very cyclic. What happens now will, the wheel is rotating all the time. Kala Chakra. So that is a very nice conceptualization of the Indians. It's a chakra. Kala is a chakra. Yesterday we talked about it. It's not linear, it is cyclic. So what goes up will come down. We may not possibly see it. So Brahmaji is also doing in his own routines, I think. Are they the excess creation of God? No, all that we will balance of food availability and all that. This is a very long innings that is happening. What we are seeing is a little bit. So these are temporary spikes. But for us, it looks like it is such an important thing. So we assume a lot of importance to it and then try to make sense of it. I think in the long run, all these are tiny blobs in the radar. For us, it looks a little bigger and so on. So I don't think we should worry too much about all these. So that's what it is. Another one, this says the weight of the earth is constant. I think WT is meant to be weight, I think. The message says WT dot. So I assume it is weight. Weight of the earth is constant from time immemorial. Life is also constant and takes birth in different forms if there is an imbalance. Earth can't be in the celestial orbit. And the theory, matter can neither be created nor destroyed, holds valid. So, what is all this? So, all these, many of these scientific, we have to understand one thing. Science works only with pratyaksha pramana, primarily. See, we have 4 valid means of knowledge as per our Tarkashastra. Then they have added 3 more. We'll stick to the 4 basic. Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana, Shabda. These are the only 4 ways by which we can establish a knowledge in a valid fashion. This is what our Tarkashastra says. Science, by and large, works with Pratyaksha. Of course, science has also resorted to a little bit of Anumana and Upamana. And in a very contrived fashion, in a very limited fashion, science is also willing to take Shabda. It doesn't take every Shabda, it takes only some Shabda. Not all experts are agreeable to science. Apta Vakya, not everybody is. So many of these statements that are all coming all have a limited meaning in a limited context. If we take an empirical world, which for us it appears it is stable, we are there for some time, then we go away. In that limited lens, all these statements, make one sense or the other. If you take the Vedantic perspective of Jagat, then matter is also not there. When matter is not there, where is this law of conservation of matter? If matter, Nasati Suktam Visa, Nasadasi Tadanim Satasit. So we don't know whether it was Asat or Asat. It was beyond a concept. It was even before and beyond the conceptualization of matter. So when it is all beyond matter, what do we do with all these statements and rules? These are in a very limited sense. They make in a very limited empirical world, in a vyavahara drishti. When you take a paramarthika drishti, all these have their own limitation. So that is the meaning of all these. Does the adharmic person or charvaka, whatever, also go through Devayana and Pitruyana? Of course. Sungachavadi tappad. I told you yesterday. Nobody misses the toll gate. You can take a longer route. A Charvaka may take a much longer route. Instead of 1,000 dhanmas, he will take 1,000 to the power 1,000. That is okay. But this is a universal rule. Everybody have to go through the Pitruyana, right? Some go through Devayana. That is a Kramamukti. But everybody goes through the Pitruyana, whether you are a Charvaka or you are not a Charvaka. All those are to describe a few things that we experience and the way we understand the God, we understand the reality. That's what all these Charvakas and other, Nastika Darshanas, Astika Darshanas, all those are only for that limited purpose. The fundamental structure is all of us are walking towards that destination only. That's what I said, Sunga Chavadi Tappad. You have to go to the toll gate finally and pay the toll and then exit. So like that. Therefore, it may be a longer route, it may be a shorter route, it may be a route which you go on going again and again, not knowing what you are doing. All that is possible. So definitely a Charvaka will also go through Pitruyana, and there are the other paths also which we saw yesterday. It is said that Bhagavad Gita is the conversation between Lord Krishna and Arjuna during Kurukshetra war. Approximately how much time was taken for this lengthy conversation? Very interesting. In the battlefield, was it possible to stop the war during this time? I like this question for the simple reason I tell people don't ask such questions. For that reason. No, I'm seriously telling you. The point is, moment you subject your mind to analytical and objective thinking, we are away from self-evolution. Self-evolution does not need analytical thinking. Self-evolution does not need logic. It is beyond logic. The only purpose this kind of question, I'm fine with this question. All that I'm saying, my student also in my class, they ask, since I do an elective, they have more tendency to ask these questions. So I tell the students in the first class, I do not even know whether Krishna existed or not. I do not even know whether Mahabharata, practically you can take it like that. I say, personally, I have a belief. But the direction from which I am coming is, don't rattle your analytical brain into all these matters. Then we will miss the essence. This is the problem. In fact, in my class, I narrate the story of Draupadi Vastrapaharana. I tell them, Draupadi was brought to the court and Dushadana was disrobing Draupadi, and then she finally called out Krishna, and there was an infinite. So I tell this story and say, please don't analyze this analytically. And I am also a professor of operations management. If you have infinite number of cloth has to be manufactured, I will immediately calculate the capacity, how many machines are required. Do you have enough cotton which are ordered? Is the capacity balanced? Is the rate at which you are winding Draupadi and the rate at which you are unwinding Draupadi, if they are not equal, Draupadi either will move to the right or left. I can do a detailed calculation and show you. This is what will happen. That story is not meant for it. So in the same way, I'm happy this question was asked. I think we should have this clarity. We should not worry whether it was in the battlefield, whether they were standing east, west or northwest, whether one was sitting and other was standing. I think we should, the Sukshmartha is what is the most important thing for us. All this Vachyartha we should live. In fact, this is the very essence of Indian knowledge system, which the Westerners never understood. So they analyze everything like this because they don't have the background. We have the background. We have to synthesize the Lakshyartha, not the Vachyartha. Words have a lot of meaning and you can take it, break it, semantically use language, use grammar, everything we can do. That's not what it is. So therefore, while the question may be useful for somebody to do a PhD and get a PhD, that has no other value. Somebody can do a PhD and ask whether it was narrated in 13 minutes or 15 minutes, etc., etc. These are useful for some getting some useless PhD. Beyond that, I don't think it is going to be of much use. I think we should leave all this behind. Only then we will go to the Lakshyartha. So in this connection, I want to tell you one Devaraj Mudaliar in Chennai in the 30s, very big man. So he went to Ramana Maharshi and he went to Ramana Maharshi and said, Bhagavan, I have been reading this Bhagavad Gita, nothing is happening to me. Ramana Maharshi was not answering for a few days. One day Bhagavan said that you are looking at the book is saying, look at you. That is the difference between the Vachyartha and Lakshyartha. You should read Bhagavad Gita, not for the purpose of memorizing or properly interpreting sloka. They are all fine. It is to take what is intended there and then consume it. So that's what Bhagavan said. You are looking at the book is saying, look at you. So like that, Bhagavan replied. So Lakshyartha is very important for us. Vachyartha is not. So let us not worry about this question. Let us not worry whether it happened in the battlefield or not. All that I think is fine. For us, it is not of interest. But somebody for some purpose, they can make use of it and so on. Then there is a question. Is it true that Paramatma or Super Soul is present in all living entities along with Jivatma or Brahman? Is it true that Paramatma present in a body decides which new material body the soul will enter after giving up the old body? So in the first question, Paramatma, Super Soul is Paramatma, so I leave Super Soul. Is it true Paramatma is present in all living entities along with Jivatma or Brahman? In fact, Jivatma, Brahman and Paramatma are same. It is only out of Ajnana that we understand it to be different. So until we have that ignorance, then this Anekatva, right, will come in Kathopanishad. There is a mantra which says, as long as we are in Anekatva, we will go through the cycle of birth and death again and again. Whereas it says, Neha Nanasti Kinchana. It's all one. But until we reach that stage, all these will look separate, will look independent. In fact, the great Advaita Siddhanta, Sishtadvaita, Advaita, and Dvaita, they are interpreting the oneness in slightly different ways. But the point is, they are all the same. For a realized soul, these are only Vacharambam. These are all Namadeyam. They are all only terminologies which we use as long as we see, different things. Once everything is seen to be one, all these vocabulary will just disappear or evaporate and go to the background. Therefore, all are same. But for an unrealized soul, we seem to be very concerned. Is it different? How is it different? And so on. Is it true that Paramatma present in a body decides which new material body the soul will enter? Well, I think the way we have understood and the way we have this thing is, a new body is manufactured out of the prarabdha that this Atman brings forth. The body is manufactured. The body decides to be in a particular family, in a particular time, in a particular stage of the, life of nations based on the prarabdha that it has brought. So it is the prarabdha karmas which decide how this Jivatma's next journey goes in its infinite journey of liberation. Therefore, is it Paramatma? He says, there is a nice sloka, 14 sloka in chapter 5. Na kartrutvam na karmani loke sujati prabhu. He says, I am out of all these equations. Because you have the kartrutva, you have the karma, so, Subhavastu vartate. He says, I am out of it. You accumulated the karma. Out of the karma, you now, take a portion of it and call it as prarabdha karma. Because you took it, you have to go through a certain, that karma has to be spent in the most appropriate way. So identify the right body, the right family, the right situation, etc., etc. So that is our understanding of this whole idea of going. I think these are some of the questions that came today. Okay. So we will just go through, we have 3 more shlokas, which is in a way sort of summarizing what we have seen so far. And towards the end also, I want a little summary I want to do after having gone through so many different ideas over the last 28 shlokas. I will, in a concise way, I want to summarize. So yesterday we saw the Uttarayana and the Dakshinayana. We also looked at how the Chandogya Upanishad introduced the Panchagni Tattva, how the return journey happens, how the forward journey happens. So let us not too much worry about all that. That I brought only because only then sometimes we remember and understand what is told in a shloka. There is much more substantive which comes through the shlokas have gone. So it's all summarized here, the discussion of Uttarayana and Dakshinayana with this shloka. Shukla Krishne Gati Hyete Jagata Shashvate Mate Ekaya Yatyana Vrittim Anyaya Vartate Punaha. Right? He Shukla Krishne Gati He Yete Jagataha. Jagataha is from the Jagat. Right? Jagataha Shashvate Mate. It says, as we depart out of this Jagat, we go through the Shukla and the Krishna path, Gati. Right? And then it ends with a very nice observation, Shashvate Mate. This is an eternal thing. Now, what is this eternal thing? This is more or less forever. Shashvata means it exists. Now, what is the meaning of that is that as long as an Atma goes through this karma after karma after karma, this tank of karma never exhausts. If the Sanchita karma never gets exhausted, never gets empty, then you have to go through this Pitriyana. So this going through this path again and again, for all practical purposes, in a limited sense, it looks like permanent. This is one meaning. Because if something happens some 10,000, 100,000 times, for practical purposes, we can say it is permanent. Although it gets ended one day, when something is very long, we more or less think it looks like permanent. That is one meaning. Second meaning, this is a Shashvata rule. Not for you, for everyone. One person would have liberated. But this is a path everybody have to walk through forever. Even if a pralaya happens in the next kalpa, it will start anyway. So therefore, every one of us, in our journey of ultimate liberation, in our journey of that mumukshutva, that vidya, the jnana praptihi that happens through vidya, vidyaya, shraddha, all that we said yesterday. For every one of us, this path is the only laid out path, which means as long as living beings exist in this world, whether we exist or not, as long as Sakala Jiva Rashi Asmin, Jagati, Asti, Tavat Paryantam, these 2 paths will be there. So therefore it is Sashvata. That is the meaning of the Sashvata. For us also, for practical purposes, it looks like permanent because it is too long. But then whether it is for an individual or anybody, this is a rule for everyone. So this is a permanent rule. That way it is Sashvate Mate. So he says, Shukla Krishne Gatihi, Hi, Etaha, Ete, these 2 paths of Sadhan path and Nadan path, Shashvate Mate. They are the eternal methodology by which every Atman will continue its journey. That is the journey we all take. It's possible that we go through the Sadhan path many times. And either we go through the Nadan path and a Krama Mukti or a Videha Mukti while you are in the Sadhan path itself. All that is all explained everywhere. But the point is we have to go through this path. So it also concludes the characteristics of the 2 paths. Ekaya, through that one path. Yati Anavrittim. If you go through one of the path, you don't come back. Anavritihi. Right? Anyaya avartate punaha. So that path in which we don't come back is called Devayana or Uttarayana, right? Or Aditya Marga, like that, different ways they explain. Because the presiding deity there is sun, which takes you through up to the Brahmaloka. So, Anavritti. It's called Devayana. The other is called Pitriyana, because we go only up to the Pitriloka. Then we go to the Devaloka. Then, yesterday I said, Shine Punye Martilokam Vishanti. Traividya Somapa, Puta Papaha. They do all good things. So they go up to Devaloka and then they have to come back. Shine Punye Martilokam Vishanti. They have to come back. So that is the Pitriyana. So become Pitrus and then Devas. That is why in that calculation also, a detailed calculation which I showed you day before yesterday, we saw Manushya, Pitru and Deva. That's all. We did not go beyond that. Because if you go beyond that, all these calculations have no meaning. There is no return. The return is only here. That's why we did that calculation. That's why in Srimad Bhagavatam only these three are told. Manushyanam, Pitrunam, Devanam. That's what all that calculation I showed you, 1,000 yoga circles, etc., etc. So that is what it is. So it says, Ekaya yati anavritim anyaya vartate avartate punaha. They just come back again. So with this, in this part of this chapter 8, in the last 7-8 shlokas, Sri Krishna tells us that if you are not remembering the last minute, what path will you go through? Alva, now, ಯಾವ್ದು ದಿಶೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕು, ಯಾತರ ಹೋಗಿ ಯಾತರ ಬರಬೇಕು, all that is being explained, all the Uttarayana, Dakshinayana, they're all matter of details. But the point is, we just go through all this and then is Punarapi Maranam, Punarapi Jananam, all that is happening. So all these ends. So in the last two slokas, Sri Krishna concludes this whole discussion with the substance of what finally we need to get to know from all these things that is being described in this chapter. So we'll see those two. Naite sriti partha janan yogi muhyati kaschana tasmat sarveshu kaleshu yoga yukto bhavarjuna. Naite sriti, he partha. Naite sriti, these two, Dvivachana. These two paths, Sruti is path. Janan, somebody who is aware of both the paths, and that yogi, mukhyati, kaschana, never he gets deluded, he never gets confused. And yogi has understood the value of these two paths. Very clear understanding this yogi has developed, so his yogi practices are all aligned according to, see, we do things only when we understand something. And when we do wrong things, because we did not understand. Nobody wants to do foolish things. Nobody on the world is a fool. Everybody has their intelligence and they do. It is only a matter of how much I have understood. I have understood in a particular way, accordingly I do something. So if we develop that superior understanding, a deep understanding of the two paths, that is what is intended here. So if a deep understanding of these two paths, what it means, how do we actually observe these two paths? How do you get into the two paths? What are all the things we have to do? What are all our niyama anusara that we need? If an yogi understands all that, right, he never gets confused. That yogi is never confused or deluded. No confusion. Naite sriti partha, he partha. Having sriti janan, right? Na muhyati kaschana. Yogi na muhyati kaschana. So that's how we have to do the anvay of that. The yogi will never get unnecessarily confused. Path is very clear. The focus is clear. Ekasesha buddhi. Single pointed focus with which that's why yoga balena. That's what he said. Manasa chalena, yoga balena, all that Sri Krishna says in the earlier shlokas and so on. Therefore, tasmat sarveshu kaleshu yoga yuktaha bhava Arjuna. Hey Arjuna, therefore you understand this concept and you become a yoga yukta. Yukta is one who is connected. Yogi is one who has a practice of sense control, mind control, a certain ability to do a focused tapas. He is a yogi. And he says, therefore, tasma sarve. So you stay connected 24/7 with this idea and with the Bhagavan. Then prayana kale, no issues. That's where we started the whole story. If you are tasma sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yuddhya cha mayarpita mayo buddhihi mameva yeshesi na samshaya, he said. That is what he reminds once again here. For all these reasons, you may be doing anything. All the time remember this. All the time be in the thought of the God. That's not difficult. We need to only be aware of the importance of it and the value of it. Then as we do anything, our mind is so well equipped for multitasking. That's what my mind does. When I read something, I keep thinking about something else. When I talk to something, I also evaluate what that person is in 1,000 ways. So don't tell me mind cannot do more than one. Mind can do 1,000 things at a time. Bring it to two. One is Samaji Asmavi Karyam Karniyam Vayam Kurmaha. Dutiya Vishaya Bhagavad Chintanam. From 1,000 we bring it to two. And one we'll keep it for Bhagavad Chintanam. Another for whatever we have to do, we have to do. That's why he says Mukta Sangha Samachara. That's why he says Tadartam Karma Kaunteya Mukta Sangha Samachara. So you do like that Yajnartam Karma Lokan Anyatra Karma Bandha. Tadartam Karma Kaunteya Mukta Sangha Samachara. Swakarmanatam Abhyarcha Siddhim Vindati Manavaha. Take that attitude to be part of the society. Be part of the society. Involve in everything in the society. Whatever you do, I always remember it is Archana to our Ishta Devata. Take that perspective, then the God thought will be with us all the time. The godliness will be with us all the time. That's why he says, that is being a yoga yukta. All the time remember God. Whatever we do, it doesn't mean you have to throw everything and go and sit. If you throw everything and go and sit, 1,000 unnecessary thoughts will come. Because our mind is still not ready. Only through karma we will get chitta shuddhi. So never give up karma. This is the biggest message in Bhagavad Gita. Mate sangastva karmani. You are part of a society. This is a big ahuti that is happening. Big yajna happening. All of us have to offer our ahuti. There is no second opinion on that. The only question is, how do we do it? What do I bring to the table? What thought with which I should do? That's why he said, Swakarmana tamabhyatcha siddhim vindati manavaha. So that is yoga yukto bhava Arjuna. Sarveshu kaleshu. So he brings the same shloka, 8 shloka once again and says, I have said so many things in between. This is the sum and substance of what you have to finally remember. That is the most important thing for you. That's how he concludes. Vedeshu yajneshu tapaschu chaiva daneshu yat punya phalam pradishtam atyeti tat sarvamidam viditva yogi param sthanam upaiti chadyam. So he says, Tasma sarveshu kaleshu yoga yukto bhava Arjuna. So what is the value of it? He says, Vedeshu, Yajneshu, Tapassu, Cha eva daneshu, Yat punyapalam pradishtam. You do all these. Be fully aware of the Vedic corpus and, practice whatever is told in the Purva Bhaga and then reflect on the Uttara Bhaga of the Veda, whatever phala you get. Yajneshu. The Purva Bhaga Veda talks about a lot of yajna. Life is an yajna. Go to chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita and read that. Purovacha prajapatihi anena prasavidyam ishtakama duk is what he said. You lead a life which is an yajna. That's why our ancestors had Panchamaha yajnas. They wanted to think about it every day. That's why, you have this Bhuta yajna, Manushya yajna, Pitri yajna, Deva yajna, and, the final Brahma yajna, which is the knowledge. Life is an yajna. So even whatever phala you get out of that, doing all these yajnas, tapassu chaiva daneshu, yajna dana tapakarma pavanani manishinam is what he is going to say in chapter 18. These are all the ones which will purify our mind. Yajna dana tapas, they are all coming here. Yajna, dana, and tapas are also mentioned here. So all that purity of mind that we will obtain by doing all that, yat punyapalam pradishtam, whatever is the benefits that we are going to get, all that you will get now and here. Cha adyam. Right? Atyeti tasarvamidam viditva yogi param sthanam upaiti chadyam. We not only obtain all those benefits of yajnadana tapakarmaha, pavanani manishinam, all that you do, with all that, whatever you will get all that by this simple yoga that we do. Brahma Chintanam, Bhagavad Chintanam, 24/7. If we are able to get that practice, Sri Krishna says that you will become that Akshara Brahman. That is the ultimate sthanam that we have to reach. That is the ultimate stage. Parandhama is what he said yesterday, one of the shlokas we saw. That is a parandhama that we have to reach. That stage, viditva yogi paramsthanam. He uses the word paramsthanam here. There he said parandhama. Here he says paramsthanam. Upaiti yogi, upaiti paramsthanam. So, such a simple way by which Sri Krishna has given us a teaching. And he has told us this is how we have to actually lead our life. With this, the shlokas come to an end. I want to only summarize the 2 sentences. I would request, of course, Sujata do a little meditation of the key concepts. Then I'll hand over. We'll have all the closing formalities. The Guru also will give his Ashirvachana and so on. See, we have gone through so many concepts in this chapter. We started with some technical definitions. What is Adi Devam? What is Adi Yajnam? What is, Adhyatma, Karma, Brahma, all that 6 technical terms. Then this question came, Prayana Kale, Manasa Chalena, Pranam Avesha Samyak. The question was, what do I do in the last minute? What should I do? And so on. All that were described. But if you look at all these teachings, finally, if you have to conclude, finally, you have to say, what is the key takeaway from this chapter? Those are the last 2 shlokas. The final, all these Uttarayana, Dakshina, let it all remain. Let us understand that, let it remain at the background. The key message that we get out of this chapter is, he says, Tasyarha Sulabha Partha is what he said in one of the shlokas. Right? Yes, few times he has said, in this chapter also he has said, there is a very simple way by which we get that reach that ultimate goal. And what is that? Tasma Sarveshu Kaleshu Mam Anusmara. Bhagavad Chintanam. All these details, don't worry, you leave it. Sometimes it helps to understand, but don't rattle your mind on trying to understand what is 10 power 14 and all that, what is Uttarayana, Dakshinayana. Let it all remain. They are all giving us a little understanding. The key message is, if we are able to train our mind, if we are able to cajole our mind and tell our mind, have Bhagavad Chintan. That, I think, takes us, that is the easiest and the shortest route for us to realize the Brahman, which is Aksharam Param. That is the message that Sri Krishna gives in this chapter. So with this, I will close down here. Finally, we will just say Shanti Mantra and end it. For the Nama Japa. Madbodu, ಅದರಿಂದ ನಮಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಬರುತ್ತೆ